Greetings to all. I am Sejat Chokya, and today I will deal with the topic heroism, language, and sacrifice in For Whom the Bell Tolls, a study of violence, epic structure, and the martyrdom of Robert Jordan. Here are my academic and as well as my presentation details. Here is the table of content. For Whom the Bell Tolls is set during the Spanish Civil War and explores the theme of war, sacrifice, and human solidarity. This novel particularly deals with the American volunteer Robert Jordan, whose main aim to blow up the bridge. Through Jordan's mission, Hemingway examines the relationship between violence, heroism, language, and sacrifice. The narrative presents Robert Jordan not merely as a soldier, but as a figure whose personal sacrifice reflect a broader vision of human unity. My research question for this presentation is: to what extent does Hemingway employ epic machinery and symbolic language to transform Robert Jordan's experiences of meaningless violence into a structural narrative of secular martyrdom? Hypothesis would be Robert Jordan is constructed as a modern epic martyr whose heroism emerges from the synthesis of moral discipline, language magic, and the traditional appearances of the epic mode. Critical perspectives by Frohock, Stephens, Brenner, and Moynihan suggest that Jordan's final act of truth transcends individual heroism to achieve a mystical oneness, positioning his sacrifice as a universal symbol of moral responsibility and collective struggle. Uh, Critical framework, violence and disciplines. Critics such as Frohock defines the setting as a world seething with violence, where the abundance of pain is endurable only at the cost of tolerating an abundance of pain which is meaningless. The discipline of integrity, need for integrity, the ability to face the truth and tell it, is a discipline that the Hemingway hero must subject himself to. Honest as the role refuge, in a literal fact, a hell of world where ethical values are disrespected, honesty turns out to be an only certain virtue a man can cling to. Application to Robert Jordan. This explains Jordan's moral aspect. His heroism is defined by his specific attitude toward a world of the world's making and not of his own. Language and symbolism reality. In this particular novel, language plays a major role. Uh, Critics such as Robert or Stephens, which suggest that characters are obsessed with language magic, assuming a necessary connection between words and things, where the word symbol fuses directly with the objects of action. Mythics twisted discursive language. Jordan's utilizes mythic language to make rather than discover reality. This stands in contrast to the discursive language of political dialectic, which separates the world from the dead. Uh, Taking death, Jordan recognizes that his predecessors, Kashkin, failed because he talked too much of death. In this world, language precedes the apprehension of reality. To speak of death is to summon the event into being. As Jordan does not like when Kashkin constantly fears of death and constantly using the language which is basically based on the fears of death. Phatic communion. Beyond mere communication, language serves as a phatic communion, a mode of social actions like the breaking of bread together that binds the gorilla group into community. Verbal catharsis. Jordan uses language for exorcism, believing that experiences must be made real through words before it can be exercised or gotten rid of by writing about it. Epic machinery used by Robert Jordan and the critical perspective given by Gary Brenner. The secondary epic, Hemingway superimposes formula and machinery from antiquity to elevate a local skirmish into a work of vast scope. Heroic stature, Jordan is cast is in an epic mold, paralleling Leonardo's Thympopyle. His stature is reinforced by legendary arms and Shiren like grandfather. Modern supernaturalism, classical gods are replaced by agents of the air, fascist plans and pillars, preternatural awareness, which is also conveyed as modern supernatural in the novel. Uh, Megalopresia means elegance. The use of Homeric smiles smiles, and sensory categories provides the elegance and breathed the essential to the epic mode. Iliad-like structure, which is given in the article of Gary Brenner. The emotional wrangling between Jordan and Pablo mimics the Agamemnon Achilles conflict with a simple and disastrous plot. The Martyrdom of Robert Jordan and the critical perspective of William T. Moynihan in his article. A martyrdom narrative of test. Moynihan interprets the novel as a martyrdom plot consisting of a series of tests or obstacles designed to push the hero's resolution to the breathing point. Acceptance of duty and death. Robert Jordan accepts the death and his acceptance towards his duty, as at the end of the novel he sacrificed himself for other people, a man willing to die for a cause. Hemingway depicts a protagonist whose absolute determination to die for an ideal emphasizes the mighty theme of the mystical oneness mankind, which can be seen in the Robert Jordan as a Hemingway's hero. Individual sacrifice for humanity. Robert Jordan perspective, his main goal to blow up the bridge for the vast amount of people and for the group of people and for that particular city, but for him that was also part of his personal ambitions. Heroism and violence, and for whom the bell tolls. War ethics and discipline. Robert Jordan understands that violence in war must be guided by discipline and responsibility, not cruelty or revenge. Although he participates in violence, he remains morally conscious of the consequences of killing. That's why his constant consciousness during the wartime, when he faces the another party's soldiers while they were blowing up the bridge, he admits the troubling nature of war when he reflects, I have been tainted with it for a long time of now. Discipline as a moral defense, as Frohock argues that in the world seething with violence, the Hemingway hero must be employ a strict discipline of integrity, the ability to face the truth and tell it, to prevent the meaningless pain of war from descending into a mere cruelty. Psychological impact of the war. The It can be seen in the character of Maria, Jordan, and also in the character of Pablo. Pablo is in fear, also in the character of Keshkin, whose constant use of language which shows his fear. Despite this psychological burden, also in the character of Robert Jordan, despite the many past conflict and past flashback memory which are constantly bothering him, though he constantly remaining conscious during the time of war and the psychological burden, Robert Jordan continues his mission, demonstrating heroic commitment to duty. Language and symbolic meaning in the war. Language in the novel functions not merely as a communicational but as a force that shapes perception and action. Again, I'm using the example of Kashkin, who's constantly using the fearful language, and that language that describes his fear towards the death and the action which made in the war is, it can be considered as a language as a reality. As Jordan reflects, you can't have people around doing this sort of work and talking like that. Robert O. Stephens argues that Hemingway's characters believe in the power of words and treat language as something capable to influencing reality. Mythic and communication dimension of the language, shared experience, stories, and dialogue strengthen the emotional bonds within the group, which can be seen in the character of Maria and the Pablo's wife, whose constant support towards the group can be seen here through this communal and symbolic use of language. Hemingway portrays the gorilla group as a collective human community united by shared experiences. The epic structure and heroic narrative. The novel incorporates elements of the epic literary tradition, including heroic mission and a large historical setting and themes of collective struggle. Robert Jordan's task of destroying bridge is an example of that. Gerry Banners argues that narrative continues numerous epic traits which transform the war story into modern epic narrative. Through this epic framework, the bridge becomes a symbol of the broader conflict between opposing political and ideological forces, the part of heroism and collective struggle, that all the gorilla group of people are struggling for that one aim of blowing up that bridge. As Jordan reflects, I have fought for what I believe in. This commitment reflects the epic idea that the hero's actions contribute to the shared destiny of a larger group of society. The Martyrdom of Robert Jordan, which described the sacrifice and moral commitment of Robert Jordan, as he himself admits that I have fought for what I believe in. William T. Moynihan interprets Jordan's death as a martyrdom, where the hero willingly sacrificed himself for a larger and ideal for the survival of others. Heroism and unity can also be seen in the novel, as it can be seen in the sacrifice of Robert Jordan. His death reflects the heroism and human unity. Through this sacrifice, Hemingway transformed the war narrative into a meditation on human solidarity and collective struggle. Here is the infographic which overally describes this presentation, which is generated with the help of Notebook LM. And here is the another infographic which synthesized the whole idea of this presentation, generated with the help of Notebook LM. For whom the bell tolls construct a narrative of secular martyrdom by synthesizing violence, language, and epic structure into this in epic structure. This analysis justifies the initial hypothesis through four critical instruction: ethical discipline, symbolical language, epic framework, and universal oneness, which can be seen in most of the characters. That most of the characters are fighting for not oneself, but for by oneself for the large amount of people. Here are the references that I have used in this presentation. If you have any question, please feel free to ask.
Excellent presentation, Shehzad. How does Hemingway connect individual heroism with collective responsibility in the novel from For Whom the Bell Tolls?
Okay, Rudra, thank you for your question. When I was making this presentation, I have these particularly these four articles, and when I was reading Frohock, he when he was discussing violence and disciplines, in that article there are some sentences which says that Hemingway presents Robert Jordan's struggle as a his sacrifice and heroism, which is deeply connected with the collective responsibility and struggle, uh, which glorifies his collective struggle rather than as an isolated act, but as a personal, not as a personal glory, but the success of the Republican cause. Which can be understood with the example of blowing up the bridge for the large amount of group. Is If there is any other question, please ask.
Hello, Sajad. So my question is, in what way does the language function as more than just communication in the novel?
Okay, Sandeep, thank you for the question. As I have already mentioned in the presentation, that language played major role in this particular novel, because the use of language by the Kashkin, which I have already mentioned 3 to 4 times in the presentation, the use of language made by Maria, which shows the love, the use of language by Pablo, which shows the fear, the use of language by Kashkin, which describe his fear about death, and the use of language when they are sharing the bread, while they are discussing about blowing up the bridge, which played major role not just as a communicational part of the novel, but as one of the critics, uh, I think Frohock, which argues that use of language played major roles. Also, Welshmere, in his article, the marinating of for whom the for whom the bell tolls. In that particular articles, he mentioned that Hemingway used language as a magic. So this is from my side. Thank you so much.